It's all gone. It's all gone. What's up, YouTubers? Kinou from Lazy Mall Gaming. I'm here to give you my opinion, kind of on a certain franchise I just finished up. Put about a couple good 100 hours into, too, mind you. Oops, that's the wrong one. My apologies. Boop. So for today, we're going to be focusing on Final Fantasy 15, and that includes the game itself, or sorry, the movie and the game itself. I'm backwards on this side. Ha, there. That's also going to be including the anime part, at least my opinion on what I feel about the franchise as a whole. Now, granted, I've enjoyed Final Fantasy as much as the next guy. I've played. Actually, I started out with 10 on a PlayStation 2 at my uncle's when I wasn't supposed to be playing his PlayStation 2. I got caught, so I mean I can mention it now, but still. I remember playing as Titus and then jumping into Fantasy X-2 and playing as Yuna and Tifa and Riku, and my goodness, I enjoyed watching them. This hurts. But I was only 10, so obviously. Girls, right? But that started me off on my little shenanigans with playing the Final Fantasy series, jumping back into Final Fantasy VII, doing with Crisis Core itself, and then Dirge of Cerberus, watching Advent Children, playing 7, jumping through hoops here and there. Big fan of Disney, so play Kingdom Hearts. By the time that this video is probably finished up and uploaded and stuff, we'll probably actually have another Kingdom Hearts game out within about 2 to 3 weeks. Hopefully, I'm trying to get my hands on it, so we'll see what happens. Sadly, I might get the game before I get the console, so oh well. Anyway, trying to stay on track. So we have Final Fantasy 15. Now, this game itself took about 10 years to make. So I've been playing the franchise for a while. I've been playing 10. I even played 12. By the time 12 was basically finished, the production start of 15 started out. But it was actually going to be called Versus 13, as in the director wanted to create kind of like a secondary story that kind of goes almost side by side by 13 itself, but then because it took a couple years in the making, they had some financial issues, they decided to drop the title and focus on something else. Yay. That's the fun part about this business of gaming and stuff. I mean, personally, we're not that far into it ourselves. We're just slightly here trying to design a game ourselves. My computer's still running on a 32-bit, so I can't do too much with it, but you still get some leeway and some power with it, so good for you. Anyways, Final Fantasy 15, 10 years in the making. Usually takes 2 to 4 years based on some companies, but still, that's a lot of content to be designed and made and brought to the table. So, did Square Enix actually make it up to the plate? Did they actually win? Did they do great? Did they fall? Did they flop? What's up? Because, I mean, some games don't make it. Granted. Personally, I actually thought the media as a whole was great. Number 15 was a great installation to the whole entire series itself. As for every single game, number itself has its own little standing within the franchise. It still sits as a good whole. As for a storyline, there was a few flops near the end of the game, but that was to be given because around the time when they had their story stuff sorted out. But other than that, I personally feel like it was a great title to play. If you're new to the series, that's definitely okay. In fact, one of my favorite scenes is literally the opening when you load up the game for the first time. It actually will say, for fans and new, basically it's like first and new fans and old fans of the franchise. So, I mean, they focused it to make sure it actually was more for the new guys as well as the old people. I'm an oldie myself, so oh well. You do get the game, and you get the movie itself. There's also an anime, and I'm going to put a link to the actual site under Crunchyroll itself, or YouTube, one of the two, depending on what media sources you guys like to use. I mean, if you're on YouTube, might as well go there, but I know some people like to use Crunchyroll on the side. Whatever. I'll figure out a way to sort it out for you guys, but I'll have the links down below, basically, for Brotherhood. Now, how the game sits with the movie and the anime. Now, the anime is basically the background story of your main protagonist, Noctis, and his 3 companions in the game. The movie sits around almost near the beginning of the game to the literal... Without giving too much away, I think it would have been Chapter 2. But that's all I can say because I don't want to spoil the game for you either. And you're playing as as another character named Nyx. He's basically this. I would consider him a badass. The guy was crazy. He was all over the place. He was just slicing, dicing, knocking people out like like that. It was awesome. I watched the movie like 18 times in a row. Probably. I honestly lost count. Anyway, Kingsglaive sits about near the beginning of the game. Brotherhood is like, oh yeah, here's the actual beginning, and then here's the actual point. Like, so basically between the first like cutscene of the first game and then the actual, or not the first cutscene, first actual plot point. If you look at the timeline type thing. As for combat itself, I actually enjoy this new approach. It feels a lot like it came from Kingdom Hearts, and according to the research I did on the development process is what they actually pulled it from. Kingdom Hearts, you actually have a fluent open world type combat system where you basically fight at the point. So basically you sit there and you hit the X button to attack the enemy, and you also have to do the circle to dodge roll, and sometimes defend. It depends on the combination of which console you're on between the PlayStation 2, the PSP, and the PS3. Because they actually ported a lot of those games over to the PS3 from the DS as well as the mobile, which was originally the website version from Japan, being ported over to America and all that fun shenanigans. But the combat system, I love it. I'm excited to see how that's going to play out in Kingdom Hearts 3, but we're not here for that. We're here for 15. As for camera angles, majority of the time it actually works out well. You can sometimes get a little lost in it because it will end up being pulled out so you can see you and your three companions fighting like a group of enemies. And there will be a point if, like, say you take on this big dude, like, say a tower size. Not kidding, there are actually a couple of enemies that are that big. There's even one that's a moving mountain, but that's like end game content type stuff, and we'll actually cover that within the actual gameplay guides once I get all that stuff sorted out. I'm going to be doing the campaign through New Game Plus, and I'll be walking through all the actual missions and stuff you want to do, and then how you want to level it up and all that. It's up to you guys. Trying to think what else was in there. Oh, music. Music's great. The original score was amazing. I kind of sat sadly in my car a lot of the times driving around. You actually can get like a digital soundtrack, and it's kind of the way it's a collectibles in the game itself, where you can collect soundtracks from all the other games from Final Fantasy up to Final Fantasy 14 actually. 14 had, I think, about 3 discs, and 13 had about a couple side ones. That includes the actual battle tactics and the Type 0. There was, I want to say there was one for the actual Crystal Chronicles, but I have to go back and look because I kind of collected a lot of stuff, and I was like, okay, I'll just spend money. Here, take my money. That's nostalgia for you, man. You will seriously just do that through this game. You will love every little bit of it if you're an old fan to it. As for new fans, it's a great experience to help out with explaining the idea of what's going on. Plus, introducing like new characters and new features, because Final Fantasy 15 is basically here to stay. It's going to be releasing new updates up here and there, so I'll notify you guys on which update I'm running on, because that also affects where the story is compared if you're watching other YouTubers play the game. Fair warning. That's kind of where the story comes into play. There was a spot where they actually had an issue. I didn't notice it, but it was also because I didn't play much to that point until after the update, because I was aware of this issue. I never watched any guides, but I read a couple of articles actually from Square saying, hey, we actually want to fix this chapter. So for the people who've already beat the game, we're going to release this new Game Plus mode so they can play through the game a second time and see all this new features that we just added in. So I'm pretty sure I got all the actual features, but this way you guys will actually see it all within the new Game Plus mode when I will do my actual walkthrough side. As for magic and like the level up system, it's kind of interesting. Usually you have a system that has you level up after every battle, but in this case you actually gain this kind of like this pot for your XP, and the XP just goes inside the pot. You can't really access the pot, like the XP's pot or the pot's XP, however you want to word that, until you go into a rest spot. And of course, depending on the rest spot, also affects if you get your standardized, because some rest spots will, if you like say rest at a camp where you actually have one of your members who cooks, which gets him leveled up, you get to deal with like special events that happen with your characters, because One of your characters, he loves to take photos, so he'll like say, "Hey, let's go take this shot in the morning." So you run off and go take shots. And another dude, he's basically your Mr. Tank guy. Like he loves the be Mr. Fit exercise. He wants to push you to the limits because that's what he's basically there for. He's supposed to be your physical trainer, and so he'll say, "Hey, let's go do this run," or "Let's go catch this fish," because you like to fish. And then the third one is your guy, the cook dude, and he'll ask you if you want to cook during the night with him or in the morning for him to help out and get some training done. One point his spectacles got caught, but that's kind of one of the side stories to go deal with. As for the leveling system, it all works as a point system. You get your XP, and every time you level up, you get some amount, like this AP, basically. So you turn your XP into AP, and your AP also affects what you can get, because your XP, when you hit a certain marker, you level up, you get more HP, you get more defense, you get attack, all that stuff. But it's fully utilized within the actual leveling system, which is what you use your AP for, because you can actually use it to increase your battle damage. You can actually use it to say, hey, every time you level up, increase your health more or your strength more. You get the option to equip to multiple accessories. And it's an actually interesting system. It kind of blends the idea of 10 and 13 together, and if you guys haven't seen that or you don't know what I'm talking about, I would just say look up like the upgrade system Final Fantasy X or upgrade system Final Fantasy 13. Heck, if I can find the videos myself, I'll put those down in the link below as well, just so you guys can keep up with it. As for the, trying to think of the other stuff that came up with it. End story, great concept. The idea behind it is actually very interesting, and definitely one of those ones that gets you thinking about the concept behind it. Now, the setting, because I can kind of talk about that without giving too much away, because I don't want to spoil it that much. But basically, like I said, you're actually you play as Noctis. He's the actual prince of this High King, and you're actually going off to go to meet your bride, because you're going to get married. And you're on this journey with your three friends. You're basically kind of having like an extended bachelor party, because you're on this little trip to get to from point A to point B. But then these incidents happen, and it leads up to this long, expansive story. I mean, obviously, it's kind of like almost I want to say Romeo and Juliet, actually, if I really want to compare it to Shakespeare. In fact, there's been a couple times that Shakespeare references were made during like previous press conferences and stuff whenever Final Fantasy 15 comes up. So I guess you could say, yeah, it's basically a Final Fantasy of Romeo and Juliet. Which, now that I think about it, a lot of the games kind of are. Thank you, 7 and 8 and 10. Well, no. Not really much 10. Kind of. Depending between 10 and 10-2. That's where the draw lines. Anyway. But yeah. You do definitely get to experience a lot of actual exploration. There's a lot of interesting content within. You got chocobo races. You got your boss, or not boss, it's like a monster arena where you basically bet all these monsters and they fight each other. Now, for the chocobo, in case you guys don't know, they're just really awesome birds. They're kind of one of the main focus points for creatures. They're cute in the series. There's those in the Muggles. Now, sadly, Muggles don't do much in this game, which kind of makes me upset, because every single time I play a Final Fantasy game, I always look for the Muggles, because they're these fun little characters that go, Joe, Joe, type thing. Or Kubo. And they give you items, or they help you out, and they're like saints, basically, but they're not. But it's how it is. As for the fishing minigame's a little hard to deal with sometimes if you're not fully aware of what's going on, and of course, it's just one of those features where you're like, come on. Because I get confused with myself, and I'm like sitting at, I think, a level or rank 6, and I'm still not entirely sure how it fully works. I just throw it. If I catch a fish, I catch a fish. If I miss the fish, oh well, whatever. You try, you fail, it's whatever. As for bosses and creatures and stuff, definitely great. It has a lot of high-end features. A lot of them have certain abilities and attacks, and like I said I'll be doing like a walkthrough guide type thing, and we can walk through all of those and look at strategies that I built around it. I'm kind of more of a tank myself, so it's not going to be exactly the best strategy, but hey, if I'm basically guarding a lot of my attacks and I'm not getting much damage dealt to me, but I'm basing them knockdown, works for me. Oh well. The end was a little bit dragging itself, but it made it decent, especially since there's a lot of content you had to deal with. One of the few features and one of the things that kind of caught my eye and one of the I like to deal with is there's a whole bunch of dungeons in your car. So I'll start off your dungeons real quick. Your dungeons are a main key point of the actual games themselves. In the actual very end of the dungeon, there's a special weapon that's supposed to be built for your royal blood for Noctis, and those will play a key point at later on in the games. I definitely would recommend picking up all 13 of them if you can. I do know it was very difficult for me. I couldn't actually pick up the last weapon until post game, but that's okay. I figured out a way to make it so I can actually get it pre where I need to be type thing, but that requires a lot of grinding, and grinding is going to be your number one friend. Not really. You're going to hate it. Then your second one is your car. Your car is a beauty. It is amazing. It is fun. You can upgrade it. You can drive around. You can make it look green, white, purple, blue, whatever you want to make it do. The other feature is there if you get to the end game. Sadly, it is a post game type feature. Is you make your car fly. Now, personally, I like to fly. Driving around the whole entire map was interesting, but being able to fly and actually go from one point of the map straight over the mountain instead of doing these weird little zigzags around the mountain was freaking fun. I was like, holy cow. Only problem is, you crash, you die. You literally cannot make a mistake when landing. Like, even if you come like down like this and you go like this, yeah, because you're just this tip right before you hit the ground, if your car bounces, you're dead. Even if your front wheels touch the ground before you bounce. I can't fly to save my life, man. I'm terrible at flying. It's whatever. But yeah, that's basically it for my cover or my basic opinion of the actual thing. Personally, I feel like it's going to be one of those games that you guys would love to pick up and play. But if you're not into the RPG, then it's going to be more of a rental. So it also depends on you. Storyline-wise, combat system, music, all that definitely is a must-have, and it's great. And it basically gets my air quote seal of approval for actual wanting this game. I would definitely spend like the $60 again to buy this game on PlayStation 4 once I get my console for that end, so I can play the Pro feature. Even though there's probably not going to be much difference other than graphical improvements. As for everybody else, that's pretty much it. So, here and there. Buy it, don't buy it, up to you guys. I'll have videos, you can take a look at it, see if you like it, then you can pick it up. Anyway. This is Kinou from Lazy Mo Gaming. Thank you for watching the video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. That way you can keep up with our content and so we know what you guys enjoy. Please put anything in the comments if there's something you're interested in seeing or wanting to hear about, as well as I'll try to keep an updated notice. We have our Facebook page as well as an Instagram. I'm trying to get our WordPress back up and running so we can get that stuff running. So just basically type in Lazy Mo Gaming on the search engine and then WordPress or Facebook or Instagram or whatever you want looking for. Anyway, have a good one. Anyway, Final Fantasy 15, 10 years to make. Granted, more time than most games actually get made.